Hello, this is Ross Bliley from the podcast Pigskin Tales. This podcast is sponsored by Sterling Soap Company. With products sold throughout 41 locations around the globe, Sterling Soap Company has a unique assortment of products to choose from for your loved one for the holidays. Handmade artisan soaps created by Roderick and Amanda Lovin since 2012, these products are affordable and provide great value. Act now and save on your shipping costs. If you purchase $75 or more, your shipping cost is free in the United States. Shop now online at sterlingsoap.com.
Hey there, sports history fans. We've got some exciting news to share with you. 6 of our podcasts from the Sports History Network have made it to the final round of voting for the prestigious Sports Podcast Awards. Here are their shows and the categories. Historically Speaking Sports and This Day in Sports History are both competing for Best Sports Talk Podcast. No Nonsense Old School Weightlifting History is in the running for Best Fitness, Health, and Wellbeing Podcast. When Football Was Football is up for Best Sports Documentary Podcast. Wrestling with Heels On has entered the ring for Best Wrestling Podcast. And Shoulder Roll Virtual Boxing is fighting for the title for Best Combat Sports Podcast. Now, of course, we need your help to take home the championship for each of these awesome shows. All you gotta do is head over to sportshistorynetwork.com/vote and cast your vote for your favorite shows, or better yet, all 6 of them. Again, every vote counts, and we gotta show the world how much sports history really matters. So thank you for your support and making Sports History Network the headquarters for sports yesteryear. But again, don't wait. You gotta go vote now. That's over at sportshistorynetwork.com/vote.
This is Basketball History 101 with Rick Loayza.
Welcome back to Award-winning Basketball History 101, part of the Sports History Network. I am your host, Rick Loayza, and this is the podcast where we bring to life some of the forgotten stories from basketball history. We are bringing old school basketball to a new school audience, and today we bring you the second part of our story on one of the most famous but lost teams of the ABA. If you listened last week, this team started out as the Houston Mavericks, but after 2 unsuccessful seasons, they were sold and relocated to North Carolina, where they became the Carolina Cougars. And they did find some more success with better coaching and some really good players like Billy Cunningham, Doug Moe, and Steve Snapper Jones. But things started again to fall apart. Now, one of the things that the Cougars did that I did not mention last week was to go with a regional concept rather than just focus on one city like most professional teams do. They decided to try to represent the entire state of North Carolina. And here is what I mean by that. Their primary arena was in Greensboro, North Carolina, but they would also play home games in Charlotte and Raleigh. So essentially, they had 3 home arenas that they used in rotation. That way, fans would not have to travel far to see them. A fan could just wait until the team played close by. It would be like the Indiana Pacers playing home games in Fort Wayne, Muncie, Bloomington, Lafayette, or South Bend in order to get the fans to come out. Well, this regional approach did not do a lot for the Cougars, so they were sold again. And that is where 2 brothers from New York and their lawyer stepped up. The 2 brothers, Ozzie and Daniel Silna, and their lawyer, Donald Shupak, really wanted to get into professional basketball. They had already tried to purchase the Detroit Pistons, but those negotiations broke down when they could not agree on a purchase price. So the ABA reached out and let them know that they could get the Carolina Cougars for only a third of what they were ready to pay for the Pistons. And that sounded like a good deal to them. Their next move was to move the team. They decided that the best strategy was to put the team in the largest city in the United States that did not already have a professional basketball team. And on paper, that makes a whole lot of sense. Go for the largest market you can find. Well, that market was St. Louis, Missouri, the 12th largest city in the United States at the time. This was the summer of 1974, and they also needed to come up with a new name for the team. They liked the aeronautical theme, and they wanted something historical, so they thought of the airplane that Charles Lindbergh used to make the first non-stop plane trip across the Atlantic Ocean from New York to Paris. The plane that Lindbergh used was called the Spirit of St. Louis. Well, for the Silva brothers, that was the perfect name. The team would henceforth be known as the Spirits of St. Louis. The uniform would feature a plane flying across the chest and the smoke coming out of the back that would spell out the name. As far as talent was concerned, they were loaded. They had Freddie Lewis, Marvin Barnes, Joe Caldwell, Maurice Lucas, Snapper Jones, and Fly Williams. This team had the talent to win the championship, but they could not get the players on the same page. They went 32-52 and somehow still made the playoffs, but they got knocked out in the second round by the eventual champions, the Kentucky Colonels. Now, part of the reason the Spirits are my favorite ABA team is because of the utter nonsense that took place on the team. Marvin Barnes was easily their best player, but he was lazy and would constantly show up late. He would often miss the team plane to sleep in a little bit longer and then catch his own flight at his own expense and show up to the game just minutes before tip-off. Fly Williams was a gifted scorer, but was so confident in his own abilities that he would often take the ball into a triple team. The man simply did not know how to pass the ball. So while they had a lot of individual talent, they were unable to put it together and win as a team. I mean, it was not hard to tell why they did not win more games than they did. They had virtually no team chemistry. And the man describing the action on St. Louis radio KMOX was a 22-year-old Bobby Costas. And if you are a fan of the NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, or the Olympics, then you have probably seen or heard Bob Costas. He is one of the great sports announcers in American history. When I was in high school, my goal was to be the next Bob Costas. He was my favorite all-around announcer as a kid. Well, when he joined the Spirits, he had just graduated from Syracuse University and got the job by sending in an audition tape where he modified the pitch to make his voice sound deeper than it really was. He got the job because he had a good tape, and he was one of the few people willing to do it for just $11,000 for the entire year. About a month into his first season with the Spirits, Costas decided to catch a later flight from St. Louis to Memphis. He wanted to pick up his check and cash it before anyone else did. And that was because money was sometimes tight and checks sometimes bounced. In any case, by the time he gets to the airport, the plane was delayed due to mechanical failure. Now he was really starting to worry. He eventually landed in Memphis, but it was only minutes before he needed to be on the air for the start of the game. In the taxi on the way over to the arena, he asked the driver to turn on the radio, and to his sheer horror, he heard only sneakers squeaking and the public address announcer saying who just scored. There was nobody talking. He got to the arena and sprinted in and jumped behind the microphone and started calling the game late in the first quarter. He finished the game, but with a heavy amount of dread. He thought that his young career had just finished. When he got back to St. Louis, he went by the radio station offices. The late, great Jack Buck was there because the St. Louis Cardinals baseball games were broadcast on the same radio station. And Buck walked up to Costas and simply said, "I've never been late to a game." Well, the Spirits hung on to Costas for 2 more seasons, and he was actually a very talented announcer, and no one else was willing to work for so little. This is a good place to take a break, and I'll be right back with more on the Spirits of St. Louis.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
At the Sports History Network, we're all about sports yesteryear, and so we're so pleased to introduce you to Row One, an online memorabilia gallery and shop that brings your sports history to life anywhere. The Row One gallery includes over 5,200 gorgeously reproduced prints of team posters, game program covers, game tickets, advertisements, and more in baseball, pro and college football, pro and college basketball, and more. And any gallery item may be printed in a variety of sizes on wood, metal, canvas, acrylic, or poster paper. And in Row One shop, check out the thousands more of unique items with the retro and historical designs dating back to 1876, including t-shirts, long sleeve shirts, phone cases, mugs, blankets, pillows, towels, and even shower curtains. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com, ROW1, for access to the full Row One catalog and for gallery prints and gift items, plus get a 15% discount off all prints on the Row One Pictorium Gallery with coupon code SHN15. Follow the link on the show notes.
Hello, sports history fans. I'm Ross from the podcast Pigskin Tales. You're about to jump into another thrilling sports history moment, but first, let's dive into today's sponsor, just in time for the holiday season. Introducing Art of Words, the brainchild of word artist Dan Duffy from Philadelphia. Dan meticulously crafts stunning images by handwriting relevant words from some of the greatest sports moments in time. These unique budget-friendly illustrations are the perfect gift, sparking cherished memories and capturing hearts. Choose from city skylines, sports, history, and musicians to find a piece for everyone. And here's the exciting part. For that sports fanatic in your life, gift them a piece of their favorite team or player's history. Art of Words tells a compelling story. Explore collegiate stadiums, each meticulously crafted with every football victory etched into words. Or venture into baseball stadiums, handwritten with every player from the team's illustrious history. My favorite on the site is Bryce Harper 2021 MVP year. Because I'm a big stats guy, I think that's one of the coolest things ever. Check it out. Don't wait. Order a print today for yourself and your loved one this holiday season. Transform your wall into a gallery of captivating art and surprise your family and friends with a print of their own. Use code SHN15 at artofwords.com for a 15% discount on your order in November and December. Visit Art of Words, where words magically transform into stunning art, evoking cherished memories and touching the hearts of those who you care about. Again, use the code SHN15 for 15% off at artofwords.com.
Welcome back to the show, and let us continue with our story on one of the lost teams of the ABA, the Spirits of St. Louis. A quick story to highlight just how bad the team was in terms of basketball IQ. They were playing the Memphis Sounds and had a 5-point lead with about a minute 10 left on the clock. The ABA had a 30-second shot clock. St. Louis had the ball, so they could run the clock all the way down to 40 seconds before even taking a shot. Now remember, St. Louis had a 5-point lead. Now in that situation, a team runs the clock down as much as possible to reduce the number of possessions, thereby giving the Sounds few chances to score. But no, the players from the Spirits started jacking up three-pointers only seconds into their possession. They started giving Memphis extra possessions because they were in such a hurry to score themselves. The problem was that they were missing their shots, and they ended up losing to the Sounds by 5 points due to horrible clock management. A couple of nights later, they did virtually the same thing again against Utah. The players as a group had no idea how to run a clock down when you have the lead late in a close game. The team also suffered from some drug issues and discipline issues. Some of the players did not know what it meant to be a professional basketball player. The very best players take care of their bodies. They get good sleep, they eat well, they stretch, and they get mentally prepared for each opponent. Some of the guys on the Spirits had never been taught how to do that. In the final season of the ABA, the Spirits of St. Louis retooled the lineup and went for it all. They brought back their core players from the year before, but they added a 20-year-old Moses Malone, who was already an ABA All-Star from his time with the Utah Stars. They also added Don Chaney, a future NBA coach. ML Carr also joined the team, and he is most famous for waving a towel on the Celtics bench during the early 1980s. And as a reserve guard, they had Mike D'Antoni, the future NBA coach. They were able to bring in a lot more maturity and talent to an already talented squad. At this point, the team was being run by Rod Thorne, who was a coach and general manager. Rod Thorne had played in the NBA. He had also already been a coach and a team general manager before, and he worked as an executive in the NBA league offices. The man had held nearly every job imaginable in the professional ranks, but his biggest claim to fame was that in the 1984 NBA draft, Rod Thorne is the man who selected Michael Jordan for the Chicago Bulls. But that was still 9 years in his future. This was still 1975, and he put together what is arguably the best team possible that he could for the Spirits. He had a mix of all-stars, future Hall of Famers, and future NBA coaches. Again, on paper, they should have been the champions that year, but the players were still having trouble getting on the same page. Fly Williams, who had been a player on the team the year before, was still hanging around and even traveled with the team, even though he was not actually part of the team or on the roster. And why did he hang around when he wasn't part of the team? Well, that was because he was the team's, how shall I put this? Fly Williams was their pharmaceutical salesman, if you know what I mean. He was making more money keeping the Spirits players supplied than he ever made as an actual player. The team finished the season with a record of 35-49, and they did not even make the playoffs. And that takes us to the summer of 1976 and the merger between the ABA and the NBA. The NBA said that they were only going to take 4 teams into the NBA, and those 4 teams were the New York Nets, Indiana Pacers, San Antonio Spurs, and Denver Nuggets. The other 3 teams received a buyout and they folded their teams. The Spirits owners, the Silna brothers, they negotiated the greatest deal in sports history. Rather than take a lump sum as a buyout, they negotiated to take a piece of the television revenue from each of the 4 ABA teams that were joining the NBA, and they would take a piece of their television revenue in perpetuity. In other words, they got that deal forever. We did an entire episode on that one negotiation, and you have to go all the way back to episode 29 to hear that story, but it is worth listening to. Over the next 40 years of that agreement, the Silna brothers' share of the TV money added up to a grand total of approximately $1 billion. Yes, I said billion with a B. And they had to do nothing but wait for the check to deposit every year into their bank accounts. Eventually, the NBA renegotiated that agreement and gave the Silna family a one-time payout of $500 million for a significantly reduced annual payment. So, the Silnas actually still get paid every year, but it's just a much smaller amount than before. Now, with that, one of the wildest teams in ABA history ceased operations and folded the team. If the NBA ever expands and places a team in St. Louis, I truly hope that they resurrect the name Spirits and use it for the new team. One can only hope. Well, that is it for this entry into the lost teams of the NBA. Join us next time when we share the story of the myth of Dr. J. We're going to focus on his time in the ABA. That's next time on Basketball History 101, part of the Sports History Network, the headquarters of Sports Yesteryear. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com to find out more about this and other sports history podcasts. If you like what you hear, please hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. And check out our page on Facebook. It's called Basketball History 101 Podcast. There you will find shorter historical posts. I'll also announce there when new episodes come out. I want to thank my producer and editor, Jacob Loayza. Join us each week as we continue to mine the history of basketball for more great stories from the past. Take care and see you soon.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude. And I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website, seriously, all you got to do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you got to do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.